We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, if you need that little bit of extra content to get you through the days and the nights of the off season, subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends, your priest, your psychiatrist, your cat, and your dog. Share the video. Welcome in. Welcome into the house that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kirk Gowdy Avenue. The water's warm. Come on in. On February 5th, 12 days ago, it seems like an eternity. It seems like a long time ago. On February 5th, we did a live show here at Peek Around the Corner. And it was titled, Calm the Bleep Down. Because there was this talk about potential Pac-12 implosion. Yes, we've been talking about the future of the Pac-12 is resting on the knife's edge. But this whole time, we've had the Pac-12 keeping its 10 schools and expanding as the chalk, as the slight favorite. And that continues even to tonight. But 12 days later, February 17th, tonight, now it's time to panic. And it's for more than one reason. We, Peek Around the Corner, have not heard the magical words that we are listening for in determining that the odds flip, that the chances are Pac-12 is about to implode. We have not heard that yet. We are waiting, but it hasn't happened yet. We've talked about the strength of the Pac-12's relationships, the big research universities They want to rub shoulders together. They share a commonality, culture, regional, everything, history. 107 years for some schools. We understand all of that, and it's all very important. But now it's time to panic, in our estimation, from what we have heard. And not only that, but there's something went on today in the message boards and some articles. We're going to be going through it. My monologue is going to be shorter than usual. It's going to be more of a rant. And then we're going to kick it to your comments and to your phone calls sooner than usual. Okay? But hang with me here. I've got a rant to make. But first of all, we would not be here if it wasn't for our great sponsor. Welcome to Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters. We invite you to discover the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters difference. Clean, hot air roasted coffee produces a smoother, richer, healthier coffee that is less bitter and less acidic. Our hot air roasted coffee uses convection heat to loft the beans for a very even heat transfer. The clean, bright taste that people rave about is achieved by roasting the bean quickly and evenly while suspended on a bed of hot air. From craft to cup, hand-picked coffee beans, the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters difference. Give it a try. Check the link in the description box below the video. Order this coffee. It's the best coffee me and my wife have ever had. Give it a try. And if you do, and if you want to support this channel, in the comments section where you order the coffee, the bags of coffee, put in PATC if you want to support us. Thank you so very much for your support. Thank you, Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters, for sponsoring tonight's very important live show. Before we get into my rant, and we're going to be using the word Cloak and Dagger offer in this rant, so make sure you have your favorite beverage, Diet Coke, orange juice, glass of water, beer, tequila, whatever. Drink responsibly, but Cloak and Dagger is going on right now. But before we get in that, we're going to be playing a game tonight. We're going to be calling it Cloak and Dagger Bowl 1. And you're going to be playing it. But hold your fire. Be sure you have this figured out before you put in your prediction, because you only get one shot at it. Your first prediction under your YouTube handle, that's it, my brothers and sisters in the PATC community. That's it. You only get one shot. Your second prediction, null and void. Your third prediction, null and void. We're only going with your first one. You understand that? Give me a yes in the comments section. Put a Y. Give me a Y. Do you understand? You only get one shot at predicting the Cloak and Dagger Bowl 1. Ryan Martin says yes. Sean says yes. Okay. Now, the Cloak and Dagger Bowl is this. If there is a Pac-12 implosion, we believe a peek around the corner, the odds say still it won't happen. But it's so very close. It's panic time. But if it does happen, if it doesn't happen, we all tie for last place. But if there's a Pac-12 implosion, you need to predict tonight, February 17th. The door closes on the prediction at midnight Central Time. Your prediction is this. Name the 10 Pac-10 schools, and SMU, San Diego State, Tulane, Rice, Fresno State, and UNLV. Those 16 schools put down the conference that they will end up in after the implosion happens. Those 16 schools put down the conference. Pac, Big 10, Independent, Big 12. Okay? That you get 1 point correct for each one you get right. Then the tiebreaker is, give me the date that the first announcement of the implosion is happening, that schools are ready to jump to another conference, let me know the date, and that will be the tiebreaker. And I am, of course, the ultimate referee. What do you win if you win the Cloak and Dagger Bowl number 1? Well, people behind the scenes are working on some merchandise, and we'll be shipping you a Cloak and Dagger coffee mug as the winner. I can't promise you the date. But that will be the prize, the ultimate prize, Cloak and Dagger, with my possible ugly mug on the front of that coffee mug. Cloak and Dagger Bowl 1. There's going to be a Bowl 2. There's going to be a Bowl 3. But we'll see who the winner is of Bowl 1. You only get one shot at this. One prediction. Your second and third predictions, not going to matter. Okay. We're going to get into... I promised it'd be a short monologue, but I can see it's already... look, we need to get into something here. John Canzano. The Bald-Faced Chew by John Canzano. A few things for your Friday. I'm going to read this as fast as I can. Maybe it's not a very long article, but and then I'm not blasting John Canzano. But there's something here I don't think people are picking up. And it's Cloak and Dagger. But it's the reverse Cloak and Dagger. It's the snip, snap Cloak and Dagger. Thank goodness we're having this live show tonight, because I need to point something out to you. Again, okay, let's just get through it. A few things for your Friday. The Pac-12 Conference, this is John Canzano. This was an article today. The Pac-12 Conference has gone stealth in the last few days. My spider senses are tingling. There's a lot of outside noise, but the conference has tightened the inner circle. The conference is leaking like a sieve, by the way. It hasn't tightened, but we'll continue. It could be that the conference wants Monday's joint statement of unity to do the talking. The Pac-12 was annoyed at some erroneous reports and misinformation that were clouding the space. Yeah, clouding the space. A consultant who works closely behind the scenes with schools and conferences all over the country told me this week that only about 50% of what we see reported is accurate. Okay, now now tell us what 50% that is. I'll continue. Regardless of whether it's the SEC, the Big Ten, the Pac-12, ACC, or the Big 12, that 50% figure holds up across the board, per the source. It's why you have to be careful with what you read, and why I'm committed to giving you the source, in-depth reporting, and commentary that you can't get anywhere else but here. Okay. The Pac-12 men's basketball tournament is set for March 8th, 11th. We'll skip over that part. The Big 12 Conference Commissioner Brett Yormark told John Wilner and me this week in our podcast that his conference was still looking to add members. Boise State sits in the Mountain Time Zone and hasn't been afraid to kick off football games at night. Would the Big 12 consider Boise State? Yormark said, I've been pretty transparent and intentional that we'd like that fourth time zone to create more value for our media partners. Would I like to be a national conference in all the different time zones from geography standpoint that have the Big 12 flag all over the country? 100%. Okay. Here's the money shot. Keep an eye on Fresno State as an addition to the Big 12 Conference. I'm told the Pac-12 has only had intermittent contact with the Bulldogs, no visit, nothing planned. I don't think the presidents and chancellors, especially the ones a few hours away in the Bay Area in the Pac-12 view Fresno as a must-have. We're going to circle back to that. Fresno State. Keep an eye on Fresno State as an addition to the Big 12 Conference. Fresno State and Big 12 are talking, though. Yormark and Fresno State's president, Saul Jimenez Sandoval, have had multiple conversations, a source said. The Bulldogs would love to join a Power 5 conference. We're going to circle back to this baby over and over and over again in our monologue. Keep an eye on Gonzaga as a basketball-only addition for some conference too. It has a great life in the WCC, but appears restless. Would the Pac-12 add Gonzaga or the Big 12? It's why I asked Yormark about the media rights value of basketball in our conversation this week. Yormark said, when you think about basketball specifically, I do feel that basketball is undervalued in this industry. I just think it has been undervalued and it has been bundled with football. I think at some point in time that valuation proposition needs to change. The Pac-12, according to John Casano, the Pac-12 has kept Boise State at an arm's length in recent months, per source. Pac-12 has had a very limited contact with the school. The Pac-12 appears far more interested in SMU, San Diego State, and some others. The article goes on and talks about the low TV households that Boise State has. The Pac-12's expansive decision will be driven by media value. It talks about the history of the Big Ten adding Rutgers in Maryland. It talks about how Houston has 2.45 million television households. It's why I think about Rice University as a possible Pac-12 addition. The academic profile fits. And then here at the end of the article, and this is where it's going to be very difficult for me to stay as a gentleman tonight. I saw multiple media reports this week that announced CBS and Turner were no longer involved in the Pac-12 media rights negotiations. I had to stop and check whether I'd missed something. It was strange to see the CBS Turner development reported as if it were breaking news. I've been told for months that neither network was ever seriously involved. I expect ESPN and Amazon to end up with the Pac-12 media rights. One high-level industry source says, I don't know that CBS and Turner were ever actually in. Telemundo, PBS, HDTV are also not involved, in case anyone is wondering. I honestly, with all due respect, this is a complete cheap shot at those who broke the news, like Brett McMurphy at Action Network. He doesn't need me defending him, but this is a complete cheap shot. Brett McMurphy said they basically are done negotiating. It doesn't mean no one is reporting that they were seriously involved, but that for now, definitely they're not involved anymore. This is gaslighting. This is gaslighting. I'm not going to spend any more time on that part. I think you guys know where I'm going with that. This is the part I want to concentrate on. Fresno State and the Big 12 are talking, though. Yormark and Fresno State President Saul Jimenez Sandoval have had multiple conversations, a source said. The Bulldogs would love to join the Power 5 conference. Okay. Here we are. I'm trying to do all I can to hold back here. Cloak and Dagger. This is the reverse Cloak and Dagger. You heard multiple Pac-12 writers, people who support the Pac-12, people who've been saying the Pac-12 won't implode and all that, which is fine, great. Probably won't. We don't think they will either, but it's dicey, right? They're all repeated the same message over and over and over again. Fresno State, Big 12 are talking. Keep an eye on Fresno State. We, the Pac-12, don't want Fresno State, but we'll offer an olive branch or whatever. Fresno State, look for it. Big 12, Big 12, Big 12. This is exactly what, if Brett Yormark could have woken up today, this morning, and wished upon a star what the messaging would be, he would want the messaging to be that Fresno State is talking to Big 12 without him saying a word. And what just happened? That just happened. John Kurtz just put out a tweet a little bit ago. He said something like, some people are playing checkers, Yormark's playing chess. My goodness, there was never a truer statement made. My goodness, if this is exactly what Yormark wanted. You're San Diego State and you're sitting there going, okay, all right, wait, what's this? Fresno State's talking to Big 12? So Big 12, they're interested in coming into California, even if it's maybe taking Fresno State, which is the tier down from us. Fresno State, they don't get the total pro rata clause because of G5, but you know what? They'll probably make similar money than if they're in the Big 12 than we do in the Pac-12? Oh, wait a second. Fresno State, their content's going to be being played on Fox Sports and ESPN, and we're going to be where again? Arizona schools are thinking, ooh, Big 12, they're truly committed to getting into California. They're even talking to Fresno State. Let's see, our Arizona football games are going to be playing where? And Fresno State's football games are going to be playing where? Yormark didn't even have to fire a shot today, and he got the messaging he wanted. I'm reading this today, and I'm thinking, what the heck's going on? Are they like? Was this a coordinated messaging from Pac-12, Cloak and Dagger land? Because if it was, holy smokes, this is not what you. Okay, I read Rebecca's. It's a bluff. Maybe it is, but it's going to work. It's a. Okay, we're going to get on to something else. It isn't that message that was sent out today. That not effective at all. And no, I am not a hack for the Big 12. People who've known me for years, I have been so tough on the Big 12. I called them the horse and buggy conference. You all know I've had the wars with the dude of West Virginia. I said Oklahoma and Texas were going to keep their exit ramps open and they were going to go to SEC or the Big Ten. They were going to make that call. That Longhorn Network was an albatross around the Big 12. But you know what? We call it what we think it is. We're not a Big 12 hack. Big 10 can't stand us anymore. Pac-12 can't stand us anymore. That's why we were the black. That's why we're the rebel outlet for college football, the rebel outpost. We're not hacks. We're not getting paid by anybody. Got to call it like it is. Big 12 was the horse and buggy conference. But then they did the Bowlesby, for everything he's did wrong, he did one thing right. He got the numbers. He expanded with 4 schools. Not with 2, with 4. He took the top of the cream off the coffee, right? Off your beer. He took the top of the cream. And then the Pac-12 should have expanded before that, and they didn't. They should have gotten a couple Big 12 schools, and they didn't. So we got to call it like it is. And now this Fresno State messaging today, that hurts the Pac-12. It doesn't help the Pac-12. Okay, everybody knows Big 12 is so committed to California to getting that 4-time window, they're willing to possibly take Fresno State. Is it a bluff? Who knows? We don't know, but it's out there constantly over and over and over and over again by Pac-12 messaging. Yormark is sitting there with his boots up on the table, and he is got to be smiling from ear to ear. And people are like chuckling, but they're chuckling for the wrong reasons. And I'm sitting here, my phone is blowing up, BTM Associates going, geez, They just gave a gift with a bow tie to Brett Yormark once again. They let him kick the schedule up way before the Pac-12. They got the deal done. And of course, this is minor compared to that, but this is just terrible messaging. Again, my monologue has gone on way too long. Okay. And then earlier today, CBS Sports Dennis Dodd, we're not going to go through that whole article. I did an episode on it earlier today. It talks about all the issues the Pac-12 has been having. I don't want to beat this, into the ground. Now consider what has impacted the Pac-12 of some of its potential bidders. The league discovered it may owe the media partners $50 million. Disney, parent company of ESPN, announces laying off 7,000 employees and restructuring. Amazon recently laid off 6% of its workforce, 18,000 globally. Alphabet, parent company of Google, cut 12,000 jobs. The Pac-12 may have simply waited too long to do a deal that made financial sense. And the moment the Big 12 came up and made that deal, we celebrated Yormark. We celebrated his decision-making. And the same people who are reporting today that only 50% of it's true and all this stuff, well, they're the 50% that said that Yormark screwed up. Remember that he screwed up in taking the deal now and not waiting months later. Just remember, who is that 50% that's giving you the good information? Okay. I could go on and on. If you want to read that CBS article, go to the episode earlier today at Peek Around the Corner and read the article. I want to get to your comments and your phone calls. Panic time in the Pac-12. And when I mean panic time, I really believe it's the same situation that John Wilner says. When Wilner says there's a 33% chance of extinction, I really don't even think it means, yes, there's a chance it implodes. A greater chance that many people want to tell you. There is a chance of implosion here in the next weeks. But there's a definite chance of decay for the next 5-6 years after they get this deal done. And that's the problem. That is the issue. We're going to have one or two things happen. One or two big events. Big event A. The Pac-12 stays together, expands with 2 or 4 schools, and signs an untraditional media deal that may blow up in their face or may not. We don't know. I think it's going to be a horrible deal, but good, smart people disagree with me. But we're going to have 1 or 2 big events happening here real soon. Event number A, where they sign an extremely untraditional media deal in comparison with the other 4 major conferences. No doubt about that. Or B, a big event of Pac-12 implosion. Either way, event A, event B, it's huge. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner while we talk about either one of those happening. Let's get to your comments. I've wasted way too much time. First of all, let me get to some donations here that I have completely missed out on. Thank you, Jason W. As an Amazon manager, I told PATC a month ago that Amazon wouldn't offer anything substantial. Cost cutting continues at the company. There's been reports about that. Amazon is not even going to be coming close to overpaying for this deal. And they only want the top game each week. They're not in it for the tonnage, according to SBJ. And now I see people attacking SBJ, which is absolutely ridiculous. Ryan Thomas, thank you for your donation. I appreciate it. Your theme and you need to sing The Man in Black by Johnny Cash. Ryan Thompson, I will, but I'm going to do it on the next live show. Thank you for your donation. I appreciate it. I appreciate your continued generosity to this show. Tonight I'm not going to sing because the rest of the night is yours. Yours. Because I know a lot of people want to comment. A lot of people want a phone call. It's panic time. What do you think is, if an implosion happens, I want to hear some predictions. We have the smartest community in college football right here. So I want to hear what you guys have to say. I appreciate your donation, Ryan. You know I do. I will try to sing The Man in Black. It's going to be horrific, but I will do the best I can on the next live show. Thank you for your support. Okay. Let's get to your comments. I'm just going to fly by here. Lots of people in the chat. Skull Ducky, nice to see you. We are live. Ryan Martin, did someone say panic? Green, Mr. Green, praise the Lord, Greg. Yes, praise the Lord. T5 Terps, Flugs. I got a 3-hour drive ahead. Bringing you with me. I'll be driving, looking forward to the show. Let's ride. Turn up the volume. You're going to have a lot of great calls coming in. A lot of great calls coming in. Don't crash laughing. Fresno State is a Big 12 play. David Floyd. Golden Blue Dude, Big 12 trying to steal Fresno State from the Pac-12. I tell you what, man. This is another very good day for Brett Yormark. Just for this messaging to come out. David Floyd, Big 12 needs to focus on Washington, Oregon, in either Arizona State or Arizona. Mona Vision, no future Big 10 expansion without Notre Dame. Jay Mutter, Pac-12 stays together no matter what. Very well could be. They could stay together for the next couple weeks. But I'm telling you, the fear is the greatest motivation. We've talked about here, peek around the corner. Even more than greed, it's fear that makes you move, right? And you're talking about the fear of having to be put with that media deal that we think is going to happen. That's fear. That is fear. Ryan Thomas. Everyone panic the blank out. Cloak and Dagger. Again, thank you for your generosity. Appreciate it. Rebecca Salisbury, the Pac-12 is fine. Are some members arguing amongst each other? Yes, but name a conference that does it. That's true. That's true. That's true. But there's a lot of things going on. Reported in January 31st that Arizona spoke up with them. Some, they were displeased with what's going on. Other reports have followed up that other schools frustrated what's going on. They put out that unity statement, okay? But get the deal done. Like Brett McMurphy said, just get the deal done and announce it. If everything is fine, get the deal done. Coos Corner, the best voice in all of YouTube. Good to be here. Greg is one of my favorite channels. Coos Corner has, if I had Coos Corner's voice, but I don't. I have this northern Minnesota accent that drives people away. And here it is. There's the prisoner dilemma. Sean's saying if you're not Washington or Oregon, you need to go to the Big 12 if you can. These presidents, these athletic directors, they're looking at each other. They know the stink bomb they're about to get delivered in that media deal. And we've been told that only Oregon and Washington can really make the move. But I want to hear your comments, your phone calls. Oregon and Washington are the ones that could pull the thread to implode the conference. We were told that Arizona would not move. They will not move to the Big 12. It's going to take Oregon and Washington, and their options are limited. And peek around the corner, we don't think the Big 10 expansion doors are open. What if we are wrong? We shall see. But I want to hear from you. I'm tired of hearing from myself. Curtis, thank you for the super chat donation. I appreciate it, good sir. Now we're going to open up the phone lines. I know I'm way behind in the comments. Again, if you want to make a comment, make sure I post it. Cameron B., I need you to sing the Kansas City Fight song, Rock Chalk. I will do that in the next live show, the show after that. Thank you, Cameron B. I'm going to have to practice it. Never sang that one before, but we'll get to it. But thank you for your donation. I appreciate it. Phone lines are not open yet. Greg F. has gone big. B.I.G. Rogue. Don't know what that means. Next show is fine, Greg. Thank you very much. Okay. Here we go. Let's open up the phone lines because this show is about you tonight for really the first time. We're going to go into what you all believe, the possible landing spots if the Pac-12 does the unspeakable. Even I did not believe it. Even I don't think still tonight it's going to happen. What are the landing spots for those 16 schools that I mentioned?
Call from
Ryan Martin.
Ryan Martin, the floor is yours.
Well, good evening, sir. First off, I have to ask, as I always do, how you're doing tonight.
Doing good. Very explosive night tonight. My attitude has changed, as you can see a little bit.
I can definitely tell.
A little feisty. The whole messaging thing today. A lot of Cloak and Dagger stuff going on, even on Twitter, even in the message boards. But I'm going to tell you, that messaging, not successful. But go ahead.
So, I have multiple thoughts, rambling thoughts, as I always do. But first and foremost, it's been real interesting to see the progression of the lines of logic that have come out of certain people who are affiliated with the Pac-12 as writers for the Pac-12. John Canzano is one of them. John Wilner is another. At first it was, the Pac-12 is, even without USC, UCLA, is still inherently more valuable than the Big 12 is. Then it was, they may be just as valuable, they may be whatever, but nobody's going to leave for a lateral move. Then it was, nobody's going to leave for $5 million more a year because of increased travel costs. And then it just the line has progressed. And now the latest line that people are going with is somehow this idea that it's the academic affiliations and it's the research dollars that they get. And while those are certainly motivating factors, that ideally you want to be with schools that are going to raise your academic standing, at the end of the day, if you don't have a budget for your athletic department, or at least a decent one comparable to what you've been using or what you've been used to for years, then sorry.
No, it's okay.
Got a text on my phone and I got distracted for a second.
Yeah.
If you suddenly that budget goes down or is not keeping up with where the rest of the conference is going, or the rest of the marketplace, that is, you can't pay for athletics with academic research dollars.
Yeah.
Hang on. I'm sorry. My wife is calling me.
No.
I will have to call back.
No problem. Thanks for the call. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Okay, a couple things. One is,
Call from
Rebecca, go Huskies.
Rebecca, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, Rebecca, tonight?
Oh, I mean, I'm good. I'm chilling. I don't understand all you notice I just want to point out everybody's kind of in panic mode. Is nobody out in the Pac-12 or just kind of. I think it's probably because I'm just too laid back to care. It's Friday. No, I want to get a notion out there. Everybody keeps going bashing the whole academic thing. So I'm going to give a little bit of history lesson to everybody about the Pac-12 because it puts it in perspective. So in the 1950s, the Pacific Coast Conference was the conference, right?
Yep.
And in that conference, aside from Washington, Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, USC, and UCLA, was Idaho and Montana. Crazy, I know. They're all in the same conference at one time. The PCC died because three schools, Washington, UCLA, and USC, had been receiving money under the table, as we all saw SMU do in the 80s, on that level. It was so bad at Washington that there was an actual mutiny by the players, and they basically overtook the job of the head coach. That was the thing. That actually happened. It's crazy to hear, right? It's just a crazy story. But that happened. So when it came back, the schools decided, it was Washington, Stanford, Cal, USC, and UCLA, came back and said, we're going to create a new conference. They created it with 5 principles. One of those principles is based on academics. It is a mandatory thing. Academic standard has to be met to be in the conference. It is an actual, it's not the factor, but it is a factor. You don't get a seat at the table unless you meet it. And in the 50s, it was such a hardcore thing to do. They kicked Oregon and Oregon State out of the conference along with Idaho and Montana. So they haven't always been in the same conference forever. And I'm just clarifying this because people seem to think this is an actual thing. So when they're looking at these schools for membership, you have to meet a certain standard. It has to be met. AAU is not, like you said, AAU doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can, Utah was an AAU, I believe, until 2015.
Yeah.
So does not matter. So for that, because and what people don't understand is there are windfalls in research, financial windfalls from schools doing this. And it's hard to explain to Big 12 folks that AAU, yes, AAU helps you navigate and, research with other people and share resources. But the Pac-12 and even the Big 10 have their own inner network that they use outside of AAU. So a system inside the system, right?
Yep, that's true. Yep.
And I believe the Big 10 is called CIC, or the Pac-12 is something leadership.
Yep.
I can't.
Yep.
I know. But just to put that, it's a big deal. And we're talking about schools there's a reason why Stanford wants to join a conference. The presidents are salivating over it. It has nothing to do with, they could have lost games for 100 years straight. They'd probably still want them in the conference because they're such a great academic school. It just is what it is. It's a factor. And I can't stress this enough. Yes, the narrative changes because it's pretty much how the Pac-12 is going through the 5 points. They have 5 points. They're just going through them, and you're seeing them kind of in real time, which is really weird.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not academic snobbery. It's we really those 3 schools, and I tell people Google it. It is a wild story. They basically were SMU, but in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
They would have gotten the death penalty today. It was bad. It was so bad. It broke the conference literally up because the NCAA was this isn't good. So
Understood.
But
yeah.
And the other thing, like, it's swirling around is, like, I know it feels like the Pac-12 is on quote-unquote life support, but Washington and Oregon have only reached out to the Big Ten. They were, like, as you know, they were technically not told no. They were just told not right now.
Mm-hmm.
We'll think about it later kind of thing. But if anybody has reached out to the Big 12, your mark would be talking to them because that's how it works. They got a call first, but nobody's done that. So
okay.
If it gets to that point, and we may see it, because I got to tell you, the Washington has gone dead silent, dead silent since Wednesday. Like, there was a conversation apparently between the Washington and Oregon athletic directors, but they probably talk once a week. But that was it. Like, nobody knows what's been said. Nobody knows what's going on. There is definitely a disconnect between the president and the athletic department at Washington, but it's nothing new. Like, they both have different interests. One is academics and the other is athletics, and the president has to kind of balance both on like a 50-50 scale. But it's got to play out. But like they said, members are starting to talk. I know, like, Washington and Oregon, though, like, have not said a word, and that may be, you can probably take that one of two ways. One, that's probably really scary, and two, it probably just means they don't care. Like, they're not going to the Big Ten. The Big Ten can't. I mean, the Big Ten could invite them, but they're not going to. Like, there's no reason for them to do anything other than maybe pick up the phone and call Yorma. Like,
Yep, got it. The only thing the whole
I know the academic thing is
it's always been extremely important. Yes, large research schools wants to stick with large research schools for everything you said and everything. But and that's why the Pac-12 hasn't imploded yet. I mean, let's just be honest. That's the only reason, besides the common culture, right? Region. It's the reason why it hasn't imploded yet throughout this ordeal. However, there's another point to this that I think people are missing, and that the world is changing in college athletics. We are on the precipice, on the cusp, in the next couple of years of having these student athletes be professional, to be represented by their own union or organization, to have a collective bargaining agreement with the conferences and schools. A lot of people disagree with me, but that's where we're going. There are schools with high academic standards who probably don't even want to go in that direction. And there may be one or two of them in the Pac-12. The rubbing of the elbows, college football is changing. It's changing, and it's going to be changing even more drastically. So because of that, those others, these schools make more money with research than they do in college athletics. But the association part of it, I mean, like I've said before, Washington, Rebecca, you know this better than anybody else. What are they, 4th or 5th in the country in the 2021 research expenditure money?
Yeah,
right.
If
they joined Conference Rebecca, they're still going to be that large research university. Yes, they want to stay. They want to stay in the Pac-12, but they also don't want to be buried by this media deal. Which I know you have some optimism in that, and I respect that. But that's the difference. The world is changing. Because the world is changing, the other stuff, does it matter as much? It's still going to matter, but enough to keep schools attached with each other while their athletic departments get buried? I don't know. And that's what we're going to find out. If not...
I think coming from a Washington fan, and Oregon fans have this too, Greg, I think for us it's like, we know we have an option.
Yeah.
But if it imploded today, I know Big 12 fans don't want to hear this, but if it imploded today, before they could hang up the phone, like the paperwork to join the conference would be on the desks of the athletic directors and presidents at Washington and Oregon.
Yeah, they would eat first, no question about it. Yeah.
That's why I think I'm very calm about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Beaver fans and them, they might feel a little bit more jumpy. In the Four Corner schools, they're a little more jumpy, but Washington, Oregon, even Stanford, Cal. Technically, we could probably just take Cal with us, and I think I'm a little more chill about it. But I'll let you go, Greg.
Okay, thank you for the phone call. Thank you. Lots of calls coming in. Appreciate it. Cam and Cole, thanks for the donation.
Call from
Ryan.
Ryan, can you hold on 1 second?
I can, sir.
Thank you. Connor Cole, thank you for the donation. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate your generosity, sir. If the Big 12 gets the Four Corners schools and possibly Oregon and Washington, would it then put the Big 12 ahead of the ACC in conference pecking order? New here, so got to show Cincy some love. Go Bearcats. Go Bearcats. Now listen, if Oregon and Washington joins the Big 12, does it increase the pecking order? Does it go? Not really, but I do think in Oregon and Washington, and I do think the chances are so slim that they join the Big 12. That's why I think the chances are still the Pac-12 remains together, because I really don't think Oregon and Washington wants to join the Big 12. They want to get into the Big 10. Oregon and Washington are not going to sign that 99-year agreement in the Big 12 bylaws that will basically say, Oregon and Washington, you join our conference. You have to do, and if you leave to the Big 10 a few years later, you at least have to pay 2 years of media money to get out, just like what Oklahoma and Texas. Washington and Oregon are not going to sign that. Big 12 will have to get rid of that 99-year part of their Big 12 bylaws to even have a chance to get Oregon and Washington. There are other problems with that scenario. But anyways, they won't be ahead of the ACC. It would just be similar, but they would solidify their conference. Thank you for the donation. Going to get to the phone call right now. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I do want to kind of, before I get back onto my rant that I started and was interrupted for by my wife.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to respond to the 99-year thing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Now that we know what OU and Texas are paying, right?
Yep.
On average, a departing university from the Big 12 has paid roughly 45% of that actual payout. They've paid less than a full year's worth of media rights to leave the conference. And so I don't think the 99-year agreement, the exit fee buyout, whatever you want to call it, I don't think that's as big of a stopping point as an obstacle for anybody leaving, going to the SEC or the Big Ten. If Oregon and Washington were to come, I think generally the understanding is going to be we're only here as long as we don't have an open invitation from the Big Ten. It's the same for Oklahoma State and Texas Tech with the SEC, or Baylor, or TCU, or, anybody in the Big 12 right now would immediately file paperwork to join one of those two conferences, because both of those conferences will help pay the buyout fee for one, and will deduct it from your initial buyout fees. That's what Nebraska did with the Big Ten. That's what the SEC is doing now for OU and Texas. They're paying the majority of what they're getting, of what OU and Texas are settled to pay the Big 12 with. And in return, OU and Texas are only getting $40 million for their first couple of years, as their annual payout still getting more than what they were getting in the Big 12, but less overall than what the rest of the SEC is going to get paid under the new deal. So,
good point.
So there's more leverage there than people probably want to give credence to. And that's what a lot of Big 12 fans see in that, well, we wouldn't mind being a stopping place for Oregon and Washington. And who knows? It might be a better deal for them to have come here in the long term, because maybe that Big 10 invite never does materialize. Like Monovision likes to say, nothing's going to happen without Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And if Notre Dame decides we enjoy our little spot in independence, then better to be somewhere that's making a little bit more money than not, in my opinion. And that kind of comes back around to what I was saying. And what I was saying before is it's been interesting to see that whole progression, and we get to the point of, oh, well, the academic institutions matter. And I listened to what Rebecca said, and I don't necessarily like your take. The academics matter. We're academic institutions after all. That's kind of the big thing. That's our number one goal. But the point that I was trying to put out there earlier, you can't pay your athletic budget with academic dollars. That's just not how things work.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. The endowments, the way the endowments are tied up, the donations are very specific on where they go, and you can't take academic research grant money and use it to deal with athletics unless it's, specifically like we're researching, sports injuries or whatever, and even then, it's only very specific purposes for that. You still need a deal to pay for the facilities, to pay for the staff, to pay for all of the support for the athletes, and ultimately, it's great that they want to stay together. But just because you're in an just because you're in an athletic conference together doesn't mean that you can't collaborate. Mm-hmm. The Big Ten, I know, as their Big Ten Academic Alliance, that's their big thing. And I haven't seen anything publicly demonstrated. And I think I missed a tail end of a comment where Rebecca was talking about that. If she wants to throw that in the chat again to help me out, that would be awesome. Mm-hmm. But the Pac-12 may have one too. But in the end, nothing really stops these research universities from working together outside of athletic conferences. It definitely helps, to when you're banded together like that. But there are academic institutions that don't even sponsor D1 sports. And places like the University of Chicago that dropped supporting athletics years ago, they're still part of the Big Ten Academic Alliance. There is West Virginia is part of the, I think it's the Appalachian Research Consortium, something like that. Anyway, there's something out in Appalachia, but they have members of the AAC, the Big 12, and somebody else. But there's cross-conference. There's cross-conference collaboration there. Yep. So I want people to disabuse themselves of the notion that academics is you're bringing in billions of dollars and suddenly all of that's going to go away. Some of it may go away, but you're still getting the academic research dollars that you were getting before. It just at the end of the day, the marketing and recruitment purposes of these athletic teams and the value that they generate for the conference, or not for the conference, for the schools themselves. If those cease to exist, that also affects the potential revenue that they can generate, because a lot of these kids, not only are they smart research people, but some of them do other extracurricular athletic stuff too. That's how you get your name out there and get people to see you and want to come to your university, because, hey, I'm smart. I may not be able to get a full ride based on my academic prowess, but maybe because I did rowing in high school, I can get a rowing scholarship to help pay for a quality education at the University of Washington. I don't know if they have a rowing team, but you know my point.
Yep.
It's one of those where the value generated by the athletics, both revenue and non, vastly exceeds the actual monetary value it costs to run them. And if that monetary value shrinks or just doesn't even materialize, because a deal has yet to appear,
Yep.
then there are people who, in an ideal situation, they would want to stay in the pack. But they also have to think about the value that they lose in not having enough money to run or to pay down the debt for facilities, whatever.
Yeah.
They have to start evaluating alternatives there. So that's my rant for tonight.
All right. Thanks for the phone call.
I appreciate you, sir.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you, sir.
All right.
Call from
Moen.
Moen is in the house. Mr. Buckeye, what do you have to say tonight? The floor is yours.
Do you have the trash can handy, Greg?
Yeah, I do.
Could you pull that out and show us where Notre Dame's at on that trash can?
Right. See Notre Dame? It's below Minnesota, as it should be.
There you go. And if you just go up a little bit, you'll see Washington, you'll see Oregon, and you will see Stanford.
Yeah.
And the only way they're coming to the Big Ten is if Notre Dame joins.
Yeah. I hear you.
They might make it eventually, but they're not making it this round. There's just not the votes, people. So I don't think any of those schools should panic. I think Rebecca's right. Those schools will land here eventually. The only schools that really need to panic are Oregon State and Washington State. And if they were smart, they would be on the phone with Brett Yormark. They would be trying to land that the first ones off the ship, as it were. I know that's probably not the Big 12's ideal to pick up Wazoo and Oregon State, but maybe it'll stabilize it.
Yep.
Second part I want to bring up, Greg, is 2026 and the extended college football playoff.
Yes.
Going to market, going to make some changes.
Yes.
So I get a lot of flack online for this, and I guess I'll be the bad guy, and everybody can disagree with me. But in 2026, the Big Ten and the SEC are basically going to get whatever they want in the tweaks to the college football playoff. You cannot have a college football playoff without the Big Ten and the SEC.
That's where the
you can have a college football playoff without a PAC. You could have a college football playoff without a Big 12. You could have a college football playoff without an ACC. But the Big Ten and the SEC have accumulated enough brands and enough eyeballs that they're basically going to get to set whatever terms they want to set. And if it means getting rid of automatic qualifiers, they're going to get rid of automatic qualifiers. If it means requiring a conference membership to get in, they're going to require a conference membership to get in.
Yes, the battle of 2026, the great gold rush of 2026. We don't even know who's going to be in the room to vote for the changes of whatever happens in 2026. But we know the Big Ten and the SEC is going to be in that room. We don't know if the G5 schools, the conferences, are even going to have a seat at the table. And that's what all this is about, the jockey in the position to help best for your institution to get ready athletically for 2026. The great war, the great battles are going to be happening here late 2023, 24, possibly early 2025 to set up what happens in 2026 and beyond.
Right. And the people sitting at the head of that table are going to be the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yes. And
so I know a lot of people are putting out there that, well, if the Pac's fine because they've got a secured playoff spot, that's only as far as we know. That only goes through 2024 and 2025.
Yeah.
You know the SEC absolutely wants to get rid of the AQ. Kevin Warren, before he left, had mentioned doing away with the AQ. I could definitely see that being the SEC wants it gone. The Big Ten sides with them and says, okay, we'll get rid of the AQ, but you've got to give us conference membership as a quid pro quo on that. And I know a lot of people, especially in the comments, have said, well, I don't know why the SEC would do that and just drive Notre Dame to the Big Ten. But in addition to driving Notre Dame to the Big Ten, it would destabilize the ACC. It's going to hasten the demise of some of the schools in the ACC to have Notre Dame leave their partial membership.
No comment.
Yeah, I see the grin on your face, Greg. Don't try. Just say the words, Greg.
I'm not even going to say the words.
But yeah, I want to put that out there again. I know people are getting tired of me saying no future Big Ten expansion without Notre Dame, but it's literally the only way that the Big Ten's going to expand in the near future, unless the ACC breaks up, unless that dam breaks.
Yeah.
But yes, if Notre Dame said tomorrow that they were joining the Big Ten, Stanford would be invited. More than likely, Oregon and Washington would get in as well. But the linchpin of that is Notre Dame. So, but I agree with Rebecca. I don't think anybody needs to panic. I think the only schools that would be left out in the cold would probably be Oregon State and Washington State. Everybody else in the pack would find their way into one of the remaining power conferences.
I don't know. I think California.
I think California might roll up its athletics program at the end of the day.
I mean, and I don't mean to take your time, Monavision, but I do mean to take your time because you're a Buckeye. It's hard because we're on the precipice of change, right? We're on the cusp of change. We've gone through a lot of change here, right, in college football. But we're about to go into even more extreme change. And so what we held onto as the core beliefs of the structure of college football in the past remains true all the way up until today, and maybe for another couple of years. But things are going to change. And these athletic directors and presidents, they're anticipating this. Go to our episode that we talk about Johnson versus NCAA. And that is what Washington and Oregon, that's what they're thinking about. And that's what Oklahoma and Texas, that's what they thought about right before they picked up the phone and called Greg Sankey. And that is what USC thought about. Oh, yeah, they're rubbing elbows with their great Pac-12 universities, and they're great. But they know the change is coming, so they had to get in where the best revenue and the best exposure that they could possibly get to regardless of anything else, and they call it the Big Ten. We are on such the cusp of change, so it's hard for me to even sometimes I keep pounding on it, but it's hard for me to even kind of discuss it because the most of it hasn't hit yet, right? So, but thanks for the phone call, Monovision. I'll let you have another minute.
Can I make one? I just want to make one more point, Greg.
Yep.
And I'll make it really quick.
Yep.
I know a lot of people in the chat are kind of poo-poo academic research. And I know it's a college football show, and that's what we're talking about. But Rebecca is certainly right about academic research.
Absolutely.
Ohio State last year brought in $1.4 billion in academic research. That dwarfs all the athletics combined. That employs tens of thousands of people in Columbus, Ohio, and beyond.
Yes.
Due to that research, we're basically building an Intel processor plant just down the road from Ohio State. So yes, academic research does matter to the presidents and chancellors who ultimately vote on expansion. So that's why I think Washington and Stanford will certainly be in the Big Ten's crosshairs once Notre Dame is secured. So
absolutely.
Great show, Greg. Cloak and Dagger, Cloak and Dagger.
Minnesota 7, Penn State 1, end of 2. Gophers got to win the national championship this year. Let's go, men's hockey.
Call from
Tim.
Tim.
How you doing? Thanks for taking my call.
Good. I'm doing great. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for calling. The floor is yours, Tim.
So I had 2 points I wanted to make. The first one is I don't know why everyone's so convinced that the Big Ten is going to add Oregon and Washington in 6 years. The prize, obviously, is Notre Dame, but if they don't get at Notre Dame, the real prize for the Big Ten, which the SEC is also fighting for, is UNC and Virginia. Those are the schools that they really want. You know, at the end of the day, I don't think either conference is going to go past 20. Because at 20, you can still have a 10-game football schedule where you play everyone within 2 years and you have one permanent rival. And in basketball, you can still have a 20 or 22-game schedule and you can still be, you know, a conference. So if the end game is 20 teams in each league, and I don't think the TV revenue would go up once you go past 20 anyway, but if the end number is 20, you got to think if you're the SEC and the Big Ten, who are the 4 schools that we each want? And I think the battle line, I mean, Notre Dame may still stay independent, but you want UNC, you want Virginia, you want Georgia Tech, because that's Atlanta, you want Miami, you want Clemson, Florida State, and maybe 2 others. You know, is that NC State? Is that Virginia Tech? Is it Oregon? Is it Washington? And the other thing is I'm not convinced that USC and UCLA even want Oregon and Washington in their league. Why would you want more competition out west?
But why would Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan want USC and UCLA to have all that recruiting grounds to themselves?
Well, keep in mind, though, everyone says, oh, they're travel partners, you know, if you go get Oregon and Washington. Like, no, they're not. The difference between Seattle, Washington, and Los Angeles is like from Connecticut to Miami. That's not really a travel partner. I think people underestimate how large the West is. Like, it's massive.
Good point.
And then the other point I was going to make, everyone's, you know, Yormark's like, I want to get into the Pacific, you know, the 4th time zone, the Pacific time zone. Guess which time zone Colorado, Utah, and the Arizona schools are not in? The Pacific time zone. So he's not talking about those 4 schools. He's probably talking about Oregon and Washington. If you think about it,
that's
the prize for him.
Yeah.
It's not the 4 corner schools. You could grab 2 of them, fine. But to be honest, I don't think that the Big 12 has the leverage to add these schools to the Pac-12. And the reason why is this. The Big 12 schools, with the exception of Kansas and West Virginia, they're second-tier schools in their own states. Okay, maybe BYU, you know, them and Utah are kind of tied for first. But if you look at every single school in the Big 12, UCF is the number 4 school in Florida, at best. West Virginia, okay, they're a small state. They're number one. Kansas is number one in their own state. That's it. Everybody else is 2, 3, or 4. Kansas State is number 2.
Oklahoma State.
TCU, Baylor. Yeah, Oklahoma State's 2. TCU, Baylor, Texas Tech. I forgot the other one. Houston. They're 3, 4, 5, and 6 in Texas. You know, at the end of the day, and no disrespect to anybody, Texas Tech's a big brand in Texas. They're the biggest brand in West Texas. They're kind of like a state flagship in a way. But nobody really cares about Baylor. Nobody really cares about Houston. Nobody really cares about TCU. I mean, that's just kind of a fact. Even UCF, they don't have much of a following. A lot of the Pac-12 schools, one of the advantages they have, Washington and Washington State own the state of Washington. Almost 8 million people live in that state. West Virginia has 1.5 million people.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be the poorest state in the country, too. And then you have Oregon, 4.5 million people. And then you have Northern California, Stanford, Cal. I know they don't have huge fan bases, but still, the most popular school in Northern California is California.
Yeah.
There's like 12 to 15 million people up there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The Arizona, 7 million people.
Yeah.
So the issue, I don't think that the Big 12 is worth more than the Pac-12. The Big 12 just got the TV rights first, and they took up that valuable spot.
Yeah.
But I think what's going to happen, I think the smart play, and then I'll go off there in a second, I think that the Pac-12 is going to add San Diego State and SMU, and a lot of people don't understand why they would add them. It's because you're going to increase the pot a little bit. Let's say if I don't buy that the current offer is only $250 million, I think it might be more than that, but let's just say it is. Let's say if you add those two, maybe ESPN and Amazon say, okay, we'll give you $280. So what you could do is you could give San Diego State and SMU peanuts, because I don't believe either of them have leverage. The San Diego State doesn't have leverage with the Big 12. The Big 12 can't pay San Diego State to come in. They'd be a partial member there too. So you could still pay, even on $280 million, you could end up paying Oregon and Washington and maybe, Arizona State $30 million, a couple others $28 million, and then, $10 million to San Diego State and SMU. And you'd only be $1 million off of the Big 12.
Yeah.
You get a short TV deal. You go to market first next time. And if Oregon and Washington are gone, I'm not convinced that they will leave, but they'll get picked up. But if they do, it is what it is. If not, you're in first this time, and you have a larger TV audience in mass than the Big 12 geographically does.
Great points. I do agree with the San Diego State SMU. That addition can help grease the skids because they come in as a discount plus that playoff distribution money. Being Power 5 programs, they could be making, we had a live show last night, they could be making about $22 million each in flat fee playoff distribution, 2024, 2025, instead of making $7 million as a G5, have them give some of that money to the rest of those Pac-12 schools to make them whole. I agree with you. Expansion could help grease the skids. Great call. A lot of great points. Tim, I hope you call again.
Have a good one.
Thank you, sir. Fantastic call by Tim. A lot of great calls coming in. Now, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. You'll get notified of our next live show and our episodes coming up. We can't really schedule these live shows. We go where the story takes us. We pop in, we pop out. So the best way to catch us is to subscribe. You'll get notified, and smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. If you want to make sure your comment gets read and have a deep dive, hit that $sign to help us, support us, to help to keep the lights on. We appreciate you all coming in. We're getting new members every single day. We do not have YouTube members here. We do not have Patreon. We can't do it that way. A lot of great YouTube channels do it that way, and that's great for them. It works for them. It don't work for us. Whatever information we get, we got to put it out. We can't have tiered information. right? On January 31st, we put out the information that Arizona State was displeased. The day after the Pac-12 meeting, other people picked up on after that. So please subscribe to our channel. You'll get notified of our next live show. Another call coming in.
Connor Cole.
I'm sorry, I did not get the name. I was babbling. What's your name, sir?
It's Connor Cole from earlier.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Hey, I was just listening, been listening all night while sitting at home. I just kind of tired of the Big 12 hate. You know, I know you got a lot of Big 10 fans out there listening, but the thing that I want to point out is when you look at these Pac-12 schools in a conference that no one knows what's going on and what's going to happen, is you have to look at the money that the Big 12 has and they're getting per their contract, which I think is like right around 31.5, I think it is. From what I have seen and read today and heard from other, YouTube channels, is that Turner's out, Fox is out, CBS is out with the Pac-12. Why would these teams? And I think they're only going to guarantee, I think what I saw, $100 million from ESPN and $100 million from Amazon per year. That's $20 million per team. Why would they not want to jump ship and try to get in with Big 12 where you can make $11.5 million more dollars, and on top of that, they're going to keep their AAU status. And I get that everyone keeps saying AAU money. That doesn't go away. You don't just lose AAU status from joining different conferences. That's a whole different lane between academics and athletics. That money's still there. There's still going to be a successful research, university. It's just, I just see it as as a Big 12 fan, why, if you're a Pac-12 fan of one of those schools, why not try to jump ahead of the game and get into a conference that is, $11.5 million more dollars than what they say you're projected to get, as well as the viewership. I mean, you're talking, Amazon is all streaming, and how many people have streaming right now? I know here in Cincinnati, we have 2.5 million people in our greater Cincinnati area. That's a lot of people. I mean, not for like LA or anything, but for these other schools such as Utah or Arizona State, or that's another 2.5 million viewerships. I mean, the Big 12 has viewerships and they have money. I just don't understand why they wouldn't want to jump ship to the Big 12.
Well, you bring up a lot of good points, and there's a lot of good points being brought up on both sides of this, right? People would counter argue with you saying that, these Pac-12 universities, they do not want to leave each other. They don't, because of the research, because of relationships. I don't think ultimately the money really makes a difference. It's not going to be the difference maker. Whatever money Pac-12 makes $3 million more, Big 12 makes $3 million more. I don't think any of that is what's really going on. In our humble opinion here, Peek Around the Corner, from everyone we've talked to, it's the exposure piece. That's the weakness for the Pac-12. Like you say, these media companies are bowing out. It looks like it's going to be significantly, most of the content's going to be on streaming platforms. That is a big difference between Pac-12, if that's true. A huge difference between Pac-12 and the other four conferences, the Power 5 conferences. Is that fear, that great motivation of fear of signing away your media rights? You're going to be in the next 6-7 years where most of your content gets put in a streaming platform where it hasn't really worked quite yet. Wow, what a gamble. What a risk. That is the motivation for a Pac-12 school to pull the needle, to pull the trigger, to leave the Pac-12 conference that they don't want to leave. They don't want to leave those associations. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally correct. And, when we were in the Big East with West Virginia, I didn't want that to collapse. I like where we were. We had great regional rivals with West Virginia, Louisville, and all that. I didn't want that to collapse. We still happen to be on the wrong end of that. But, to your viewership, you're looking at, like, let's say Primetime, for example, out in Colorado. He doesn't want his stuff on streaming only. He didn't get the name Primetime for nothing. He's all about the viewership. And I think he wants that for his kids, his, university, and he wants the big stage. And I just don't think the Pac-12 is going to get it with, Amazon. And I think ESPN said they want only one game, the best game of the Pac-12 if they sign. And he's not going to be on that every day. So for someone like him, it would be beneficial, I think, to jump ship and go to the Big 12 or a Big 10 or whoever it may be at that point. But I just don't see how the Pac-12 can survive on a streaming-only platform with one or two games on ESPN. And if you know that's what's coming, why not try to get out? And I know what everyone's saying. You don't want to lose that. But if you're the president of the school, yes, it's hard to lead the Pac-12, but you have to be looking for the betterment of your university in the long run.
Yeah. You don't want to sign a media deal that you have this belief that you may be signing a suicide pact together, right?
Right.
So, love the phone call. Thank you so much. Got a lot of calls coming in. Please call again. Okay?
Yep, I appreciate it. You got a new viewer here. I love what you're doing. I love listening to you all day at work. So keep it up and go Bearcats.
Thank you. Go Bearcats. Appreciate so very much. All right. Fantastic.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Curtis, for the donation. I appreciate it, good sir. The Big Ten commands more research money than the ACC and the Ivy combined. The Big Ten research collaboration combines all research databases at every Big Ten school, giving full access to each school. Game changers. You're absolutely correct, Curtis. You're absolutely correct. Thank you once again for your generosity to this channel. Thank you for your friendship. I appreciate you, sir. Thank you so very much. Okay, let's get back to the comments. The phone number. The phones are flying. Of course, great phone calls. PATC community is on fire tonight. I say it's time to panic. I say it's time to panic for the Pac-12. Not just for the next couple weeks, but the next 5, 6, 7 years under a deal that I think is going to be horrific. Am I wrong? Let me know I'm wrong. A lot of great comments on both sides of the aisle. Great comments. Great comments. The smartest people in the room are in the chat room here at PATC. All right, here we go. Got to get back into the comments here. I'm going to miss most of them, if not all of them. Holy smokes. DWE. If Pac schools jump to the Big 12, that doesn't mean they have to cut academic research ties to current conference mates. I will say, I'll give one example. Nebraska. Look at their numbers, research numbers from 2008. You can find it. I'll try to put a link up on the Twitter page. But when they were Big 12 and since they've been Big 10, look at the percentage increase in research and expenditures. It hasn't been all that great for Nebraska. But yes, most universities, when they've joined the Pac-12, you've seen the growth of those universities. And being associated in the Pac-12 with the Stanford in California has helped those universities. That argument is 100% correct. I just want people to understand, though, got to throw in this little nugget. Things are changing when it comes to college sports. In the front porch of these universities, these athletic departments is also very important to attract the best students. Also very important to attract the best students, to attract the best research. Yes, so things are changing. So what we knew before might not necessarily be totally true going forward, especially when your media deal is about to be so much different than the other 4 Power 5 deals. It's going to be wild. Again, we talked about it. There's going to be this big, huge event, A or B. One of those two is going to happen. A, we're going to see a dramatic signed, sealed, delivered, and announced Pac-12 media deal with possible 2 expansions. We're going to flip the hood, look into it, and see exactly what it is. And it's going to be incredibly different than the Big 12, than the ACC, than the Big 10, than the SEC. It's going to be dramatically different. No question about it. How's it going to work? I don't think it's going to work that very well for the next 4, 5, 6 years. Maybe I'm just totally wrong. Maybe they're ready to roll the dice. Maybe it's going to work out. But if it doesn't work out, holy smokes, we've already seen a decline in eyeballs for Pac-12 sport content. It's already hurt those programs. It's already hurt that conference. And the schools that's why USC and UCLA left. They had a chance to leave. They took the opportunity. All right, enough of my rant.
Call from
Larry.
Larry, thanks for calling. The floor is yours, sir.
Hey, Greg. So I'm just totally mixed up with all these numbers. So, these are what you're hearing. I don't know how much you can take as true, but ESPN is supposedly going to pay $10 million per school in the Pac-12, but yet if they go over to the Big 12, they're going to give them $20 million.
Well, I haven't heard that $10 million. I don't know where that's coming.
That's well, everybody's trying to say that Amazon's going to give them 10 and ESPN's going to give them 10. And I'm just thinking, well, if ESPN has a pro rata clause for the Big 12 that if they add a P5, they're going to get 20. Why wouldn't the Pac-12 be worth $240 million if they consider a Power 5 team worth $20 million to go to the Big 12?
Great point.
So
yeah,
I think there's other things going on, and maybe you can. I'm not a Big 10 guy, and I know when your commissioner set it up, I remember ESPN tried lowballing the Big 10, correct? Way back.
Yep.
And so what he says, screw you. We're going to just make our own network.
Yeah.
Because we know we have the viewers, whatever.
Yeah.
These people understand advertising distributors.
Yeah.
And so, and I've been trying to get this point across for the last couple of weeks. I'm wondering because the Pac-12 is now, I'm not sure about the Big 12. I'm not sure if they sold their rights. Pac-12 owns their own rights. Mm-hmm. Big 10 just sold theirs to Fox. ACC is owned by ESPN. SEC.
Yep.
Maybe the Pac-12 is finally the one that says, you know what, you're the middleman.
Who's the middleman?
You are the middleman, and you're trying to cut us out. So guess what? We're going to cut you out. And maybe they are, because we've heard Amazon is going to take over the Pac-12 network. I'm not saying it's going to go streaming. Who knows? Could the Pac-12 really be saying, look, Stanford is in San Francisco, the 6th biggest market. Seattle's in this market. Colorado's in Denver. You got Arizona. You guys are giving all of these other people money because of subscriptions, but yet we have these large cities, and you're saying we're not worth anything. Could the Pac-12 literally be saying, could they be becoming the first one to say, screw you, we're just going to work with distributors?
Who are they saying screw you to?
To ESPN and Fox.
Okay.
Because those are channels.
Yeah.
Pac-12 has channels. It's more of a distributor issue. If you say, you know what, Fox, we have our own channel. We don't need you. You work with your distributors, and you don't get a payout from Fox. You work with your distributors. You work through the revenue. Because Big Ten, that's what they were going to do, correct? They were like, then we're just going to get the ad revenue or work with the distributors.
Okay. I'm going to just, you mind if I just make a few comments, Larry?
No, fill me in.
Okay. So what happened back in 2006, Jim Delaney believed that ESPN lowballed him. Jim Delaney thought there was value in third-tier content, which we would call Olympic sports, non-revenue sports. ESPN said, no, there's no value in that. So ESPN continued to lowball Big Ten. And Jim Delaney says, look, I'm just going to make our own network then and put our third tier content in there. And ESPN said to Jim Delaney, go ahead, roll those dice. And Jim Delaney said, consider those dice rolled, and walked out of the table, walked out of the room. What
right,
Jim Delaney, huh?
I know that part.
Okay, so what Jim Delaney, what he figured out was there was value in third tier content if you bundled it together, not standalone, bundle it together. And that you could get more juice for every university and for the conference. 98% of the people thought he was nuts. If on message boards, if you remember way back, and people on TV, and it worked. He bundled the content together. He created a conference network, but he needed a sugar daddy. He needed help with distribution. So he went basically 50-50 with Fox Sports. Now it's 61-39. Fox Sports owns 61% of the network. ESPN, Big Ten Conference owns 39%. Or not the combination of Big Ten Conference and all the Big Ten schools equals at 39%. So that's what the Pac-12 did not do. They did not secure distribution because they didn't have someone go in with them halfway. It's probably what they should have done. But let me continue. We've learned that bundling those content together is the highest value. We watched the Longhorn Network. Texas, a huge brand, couldn't make the Longhorn Network work. Yes, they received a whole lot of money from ESPN. Yes, this was a way for ESPN to make sure Texas didn't go off in the Pac-12 country, didn't go off possibly in the Fox Sports' hand, that they would keep them in ESPN hand. But the Longhorn Network didn't work. Why? Because it was a standalone. It was third-tier content for Texas, but they didn't have enough live sport content. Texas couldn't fill enough content to make it work. They couldn't get the ad buy rights high enough. Advertisers want to advertise during live sporting events. They don't want to advertise during the 25th time you show an old football game or a baseball game. They couldn't get enough subscribers. They couldn't get enough ad buy rights. And it didn't give Texas Longhorn athletes, student athletes, good exposure. So it was an albatross around Texas and the Big 12. One more thing, Larry. So now what have we learned about Tier 1 content, the top content for each conference? It's best that you bundle it all together, just like third-tier content. SEC, Big Ten, all these conferences, they grab that Tier 1, the top one. They say to a network, you can have the top pick of these slated games each and every week. And that gives us the best value for all the schools for the conference. Notre Dame is going to find out that their standalone Tier 1 contract may not be good enough. That's an episode for another day. We continue to talk about that. So getting back to the Pac-12 currently, the most important part of this deal, the one that I'm most scared of, and I think the one that most puts fear into Oregon and Washington, maybe not enough fear to have them leave, to go off somewhere else, to do something else crazy, but is where they're going to put that Tier 1 content. Where are they going to put it? The top game each week, because that drives the rest of the value for the media contract and for exposure and everything else. Where are they going to put it? Amazon? If it gets put on Amazon, Larry, that's what I dread for the Pac-12 schools, because I don't think those games are going to be watched. I think the eyeballs are going to drop even more, and therefore it's going to affect the Pac-12 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now, and the next it's going to decay. Now, what you're bringing up is, and help me understand, the Pac-12 should say no to. They should put it on Amazon. Is that what you're saying? And just say no to all these other networks?
No, like I see what you're talking about with the bundling. I mean, you make a lot of sense. I'm not well versed in that, so I'm listening to you. I'm just wondering if they could take all of their content, put it on Pac-12 network, call DirecTV, and say, hey, look, what can we do to get back on DirecTV, get a channel back in there? They're on Comcast, they're on Dish Network. It is their, I don't know if you'd call it tier 3. Every Pac-12 team has 3 games they have to play on Pac-12, and they're usually like just the bottom of the barrel kind of whatever. Their premier games have been on linear television, but Pac-12 has not been available on DirecTV. Not that anybody's going to go look for it, but you do have a lot of fans, and there's 3 teams that consistently in the Pac-12 are getting you, I think even during some of the worst games and not the best time slots on the best channels, is Utah, Washington, and Oregon are giving you at least close to, I think Utah was the lowest at 990 something, almost 1 million viewers average for every game.
Yeah.
And I think those 3 teams are the only 3 that have that kind of a fan base that just, they're going to find it. They're going to put it on. And so, Oregon is not Oregon is going to be carrying the Pac-12 at the same price they would get in the Big 12. Why would they make that move? That's just, why do they want to go carry the Big 12? Money aside, there's no brand in the Big 12 that comes close to Oregon. That's just plain and simple.
I agree.
They're in Washington. With academically, they're next tier. They're right there. Academically, they have no interest. They have enough money. 5-10. What is it? 1%. Tony Altimore told us the budget for athletics for Washington is 1%, where the average athletic budget in the Big 12 is 11%. If they, Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin, they have the money, and where it's coming from is irrelevant to some degree, because, like I posted in your chat, John Huntsman. So I'm a University of Utah football guy. John Huntsman, his cancer institute is right there. It's part of the university. That man gets money gets research money for the university. It goes to his cancer institute. He's one of the biggest donors. So to say that research money doesn't go to athletics when the man donates $40 million a year, I don't think people understand that some of these people are tied in to the university that are also getting research, that are also donors. Yep.
You're absolutely correct.
So like I said,
and let me just let me put in here, you're absolutely correct. And that is who we call the money perch at Peek Around the Corner. And I don't know how long you've been following us, but
about a month.
So go to Flug Empire. You see it on my ticker. Go to my Twitter handle. Go to the pin tweet and read about the Los Angeles Times article that they did on me in breaking the USC story. It was from the money perch. Okay. The money perch. I'm going to tell you this, and we heard it from Arizona State. We heard it from others. All that is true. What you say is true. But here's another thing they don't want. And this is, again, the motivation. Peek Around the Corner. We don't talk about the money difference because it's not a game changer. It's not a needle mover. It's not even close to any of that. The difference between Big 12 and Pac-12, whatever they get in these deals, isn't important, really. It's as crazy as it sounds. It's the exposure part of the Pac-12, what they're about to do for their athletic departments.
Right.
And that is the money. I don't even talk about it. This is like the one show, or I let you guys talk about it. That's great. You talk about whatever you want. But for me, I haven't analyzed. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's not enough money to make an Oregon join the Big 12, Washington join the Big 12, any of the Pac-12 schools that join the Big 12. And people, that is what people kind of focus on. But that's not the issue. The issue is the exposure. And this is a huge gamble. This is so dramatically different than what the other Power 5 conferences are doing. And those boosters do not want, those boosters who are now who are putting money into NIL, right? Some of them don't even want to, they don't want to double dip. They're doing NIL. They don't want to have to go NIL and then keep the same standards of money being put forward to the school they love, right? The athletic program they love. They don't want to do the double dipping. But now they're going to see their school just be
put on a shelf.
Yeah. And people disagree with me, and that's fine. I think people are way more optimistic than me when it comes to the streaming component of this deal. That's fine. But
well, see, I'm a Utah fan, but I live in Florida.
Yeah.
I tried to. Okay, so when I moved down here 2 years ago, I didn't have Pac-12 network available on DirecTV.
Yeah.
So I would have to go to Sling, and I would have to pay $80 a month to get the package that included the Pac-12.
Yeah.
So if it's made more available, I already have Amazon Prime. If I have to pay another $5 or whatever to get the sports package, I'm going to do it. And so I think your Stanfords, your Cals, those guys don't even show up to the game.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So Kliavkoff is dealing with a conference where you just don't have a lot of people watching. They have other things they've got going on. And it's just a different culture.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in Florida, and I'm telling you, unless you golf and fish, maybe ride some bike, it's just not a place. There's just 100 million things to do. You can go to the beach, you can do this.
Yeah.
But there's just so much to do out there, and it's family based. People just aren't huddling around a TV on Saturday.
Yeah.
It's just not what they're doing.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
You know, I don't know what you do. Kliavkoff can't fix the viewership numbers.
Yeah.
And that's why the Big Ten is better than the SEC, because their viewer numbers has nothing to do with who's got the most natties.
Yeah.
Big Ten gets watched the most.
Yeah.
And that's why they get the money.
Well, SEC watches the most. SEC wins the natties. The big advantage that the Big Ten has over the SEC is the advertisers love the Big Ten because of the purchasing power of the areas of the Big Ten that it covers. So advertisers, they're more national advertisers during Big Ten games, more regional advertisers versus SEC. But SEC is the most powerful conference in the country, and they do get the most viewership, although 2 years ago it was basically tied. But Big Ten has the most money in advertising. But thanks for the call. Please call
Greg.
again.
Yep, you bet, bud.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Outstanding. Skolducky, Greg, have you heard what Josh Pate said last night about what he thinks will happen? I was starting to watch it, and I didn't have enough time. I had to prep for the show. Skolducky, call me. Let me know what he said. Call the show.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours, sir.
Hello, Greg. Another great show. A lot of callers.
Yeah.
Man, there's some fire in the chat, Greg. There is some fire in there.
Yeah, I can't. I can't. You know, they're behaving. It's a lot. Well, you know, here's the thing. This is an unusual situation. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, to Larry's point, Larry being a Utah fan and, you know, being a BYU fan myself, we experienced something called the Mountain Television Network. And what Larry just suggested was what the Mountain West tried and failed to do. Yeah. So I would just remind him of that experience. And At least the Mountain made it on DirecTV. You can't say the same for the Pac-10 network. But anyway, the point is with Wilner and Canzano, it just has this air of desperation, and I have to wonder. Just it's amateur hour right now, and it's really sad for brands like Oregon and Washington and Utah and other good brands that they have this level of incompetence and leadership. That's really what the tragic thing is to me, and I just to the point. I just don't, these guys. I think what happened is Kleokov went in there and asked for way more than he was going to get, and as it's been confirmed, he's kind of laughed out the door. And now, kind of the time has passed, and like I mentioned in a previous call, I think right now the executive committee and presidents might be just taking over the show and trying to get things done. But I just think it's a really tragic thing of what's going on. I mean, as much as I like to rib my Utah friends, and as much as we go in the back and forth and the hate, the good-natured, fun-loving hate that we have, and the fire we take on, at each other, I do feel bad for that program, because them in Washington, Oregon, and even Oregon State and Washington State fans, they show up to the games. They'll watch the games on TV. They're committed to their teams. And, quite frankly, Cal and Stanford fans are the worst in college football. Sorry, Cal and Stanford fans. You just need to hear it. You're the worst. Go to your games. Watch them on TV. Stop complaining and stop grifting off the rest of us. Basically, it's sad. I mean, just get your act together, George, and just go in there and just take a deal. But it's just a sad state of affair. And I'm just whining about that just because I just don't. How could you? As someone that just deals with M&A transactions every day, this level of incompetence is just crazy. And when it really comes down to it, 9 times out of 10 deals don't happen because the side being acquired has a complete misunderstanding of their worth. Profit drivers are what matters, not the facade of the building. And, profit drivers are who is watching the game, who's going to the game, who is committed to the game. It's that rabid passion. And as someone in the comments just pointed out, Fox goes after markets and ESPN goes after brands. And there's a reason for it, because the business models for Fox and ESPN are fundamentally different. Fox does not have the same capacity and bandwidth that ESPN does to appeal to the passion and base of fans, and such as having the Paul Feinbaum show, or ESPN Plus and articles galore. I mean, that is really meant to apply to the die-hard fan. Fox loves to go after the shock and value and the big name brands because they have enough bandwidth to address those and capitalize off that. But they're two different business models. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out in the future. I don't really have much other than, I look forward to your next Johnny Cash song next week. I'm sure it will be very, very, very good. But, your mark's just got to be sitting here and laughing. And I've talked to this before. And Wild Ute, I will send you a DM and I will explain my ACC theory later. You've all heard it before. I'm not going to take up much of anyone's time, but thanks everyone for your comments. And, I love seeing this, and hope everyone has a great night, and go Cougars.
Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you. If Amazon gets the Tier 1 football games for the PAC Conference, I hope and I pray for those Pac-12 universities, those student athletes, the coaches, the fan bases, that they build some sort of like recruiting show or some college football shows built around those football games to promote. See, they're going to have a tough time promoting the Pac-12. That's another issue. These networks, man, they Big Ten's going to have cross promotion. ESPN's going constantly all day with ACC and SEC, and that's another problem I have with Amazon and Pac-12. And so I hope if the deal gets signed, sealed, delivered, and announced, I hope there's something else with it where like Hard Knocks, Amazon, Pac-12 style, just to get, you want these student athletes across the country to start watching Amazon when it comes to the college sports space, to get them used to it. It's a risk. It's a risk. And I think that fear is holding back some schools there in the Pac-12 to sign the deal. Again, okay, we'll get to your comments. Shut up and get out. ESPN must have Pac-12. In 2023, ESPN loses Big Ten. 2024, ESPN loses USC, UCLA. 2025, they will let go of the entire West Coast. What happens to the ad rates? Great point. Great point. And I do think ESPN wants a part of the Pac-12 content. And I think they'll get it. So, but they don't want a whole bunch of it. That's what it sounds like. I think, and I'm the only one, I might be the only one saying this, I think they get the tonnage. I think that ESPN Plus is going to get the Pac-3 third tier deal, like what goes on the Pac-12 network. I did read a comment from Tim Bruckmiller earlier. He's saying that the Big 12 third tier deal is more profitable than the Big Ten, and that's, I'm sorry, but that's not even close to being correct. What the Big 12 schools get out of ESPN Plus is just enough revenue to pay for the production costs, and that's what the Pac-12 is going to get as well if it goes on ESPN Plus. See, those ESPN Plus deals, unlike ACC Network, SEC Network, Big Ten Network, those are a flat fee payment. They're not tied to bigger subscription or ad buy rates. Back to the phone.
Call from
Cornelius, I'm so thankful you finally got in. I'm so sorry. The phone's been busy. Thank you for calling. Thank you for coming in. The floor is yours, Mr. Green.
No problem. I don't think anyone wants the Pac-12 to really die, but it's just eerily similar to what happened to the Big East, and I think that it's hard to ignore it.
Yeah.
And I think that I get why some people are saying, well, and I get it, but what's going on now is trending to that direction. Whether they survive 2030 or whatever, the tea leaves are there. And I think that when you take a look at what the Pac-12 is dealing with now with ESPN and all the networks, they're being very selective with rights. And I'll take you back 1990, and I know I'm going to probably go over some people's heads, but so be it. But
go ahead. Yep.
CBS. But the reason why CBS and NBC, our two networks, for example, CBS and NBC. CBS had a big campaign around 1990 about all the big events they had. They had the MLB All-Star game, NBA All-Star game, the Super Bowl was that year. So many big events. But they ran into trouble. They got MLB rights in 1990, but they lost the NBA in 1990 to NBC. And then when they got MLB rights, they didn't make any money. And so they lost, basically, they dropped it, and NBC picked up. They picked up MLB along with ABC, which was ironically called the Baseball Network. And then came the kicker in '93 when they lost the NFL. But how and why they lost the NFL to Fox, the NFC package to Fox? The NFL, they were going to give the networks a discount. Jerry Jones got wind of it and said, let's take it over market. Rupert Murdoch was waiting in the wings. There was a young Fox network at the time that they weren't as much market as they are now. And with him doing that, Rupert Murdoch stepped up, and it was by far the highest record amount a network had paid for NFL rights. And then CBS struggled. And they struggled as a network, not only sports-wise, but the network until they got back NFL and I think that they started to get back some footing when they had got SEC package in '96.
Yes,
but it
sir.
really started with, but it kick-started, but it really got in the high gear when they got the NFL back in '98. NBC, they lost NFL rights, AFC rights to CBS in the year. It was in '98. They lost it after '97. Matter of fact, the last Super Bowl, it was Super Bowl 32 when John Elway finally got over the hump. And then they lost MLB after 2000. Then the kicker with NBA after 2002. So basically, as you see, those two networks, they're not going to they're not going to overspend. So that's why you see them on sports rights that they feel bad, but they're going to spend. And so I think that how does it and people wonder how does it tie to what to Big 12 to Pac-12? Basically, the Pac-12 right now, they're not seen as they're seen as content, but they're not seen as must-have content.
Yes, sir.
And not being seen as must-have content, it hurts you. It really hurts you. I think that we can talk about, bringing in. Here's the thing: San Diego State, understand they get you back in the Southern Cal market. SMU gets you in the Texas market, but is it going to persuade even ESPN or Amazon to really overpay? Because at the end, and also when you look at when people should have had a clue when USC and UCLA was on Big Ten's radar. I think that when the schedules were scrubbed, I want to say for 2023, 24, 25, that was a clue right there that many people missed.
Mm-hmm.
And then when UCLA was announced it on June 30th of last year, they were going to leave for the Big Ten. And then when that happened, a lot of networks, quite a few networks, they wanted back at the table. Even Amazon wanted back at the table because
yes, sir.
They said, hey, USC, UCLA in LA market, man, that was viewed, even though the Big Ten, it was must-have, but having USC and UCLA back on board, networks wanted a piece of that. And so I think that where the Pac-12, and here's the thing, as much as I don't want the Pac-12 thing, even though what I say may contradict what I'm saying right now, but nobody wants the Pac-12 to die.
No.
But what's happening is really similar to what has happened to the Big East. As I said countless times to you in the chat.
Yeah.
John Marinato, God rest his soul, the late John Marinato,
yes,
God
sir.
rest his soul.
Yeah.
The Big East. He turned down, there was, I don't know, and it was reportedly turned down an offer from the Big East, from ESPN. And then somehow or another it was alleged ESPN maneuvered Syracuse and Pittsburgh to go to the ACC.
Yeah.
You have, at the end of the day, while they may not be completely similar, but it's still, when you pick up on those, it's too much to pick over. And at the end of the day, and the reason why the Big 12 was able to rebound because leadership, they had strong leadership. Bowlesby and then Yormark.
Yeah.
Clearcoff is seen as a weak. He's seen as weak, and he's seen as another. Larry Scott was another one who overpromised, underdelivered, and Clearcoff. He's saying all. Here's the thing: I get that he comes from when you work for, I want to say, the Wynn Casino, Wynn Corporation. I know in that line of business, when you can sell a lot of things, but when you're dealing with TV execs, you just can't say anything or just say, well, I want such and such, and they're just going to pony up for it. That doesn't work in this field. And so I think that he's misread the market, and I think that Clearcoff, unless things change, the Pac-12 is still on a slow death march. whether it be 2026, 2030, or whatever.
In
it's
that
only a matter of time.
In that Big East example, they thought they had TCU. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember TCU, and then also San Diego State also.
Yep.
And
And they thought they had TCU. They thought they had them locked in. And then suddenly, TCU, what do? Join the Big 12. They had a conversation.
They made a U-turn.
Huh? Yeah.
The TCU made a U-turn.
Yes, they had a conversation with Texas. Suddenly in the Big 12, just crushed Big East. That's why, get the deal done. Get the deal done. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Kliavkoff's got to get this done, and he's got to nail down at San Diego State and SMU. You think you have something going on? Now wake up, chat room. You think you have something nailed down? Then it's Cloak and Dagger, Cloak and Dagger, Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger, TCU, Texas. Big East thought they had TCU. Bam! They're in the Big 12. It was basically the last straw. The Big East collapses. So get the deal done. Every day that goes on, Cornelius, every day that goes on, it gets dicier and dicier. Great call.
Does. No problem.
Great call, Mr. Green. Praise the Lord. Hope you call again, good sir.
Will do. Be blessed now. And I'll be back on the chat.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Well,
Tim says, Greg, I must not have explained myself very well. What I meant to say, if you are not in the Big 10 or SEC, you don't need a conference network. The Pac, Big 12, and ACC do not need a conference network. You probably explained yourself perfectly. I probably misread. The chat's going so fast, and I was going to highlight your comment and talk about it. So I apologize, Tim. The ACC network is working for those ACC schools. I do disagree with, I think it was Kazano or Wilner. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Kazano, where the ACC network's going to give more. I think people are over optimistic on the ACC network and how much more money they can produce for those ACC schools. But it is working out. The ACC network is working out. Those schools are clearing about $4 or $5 million just within just the network. It doesn't include all the other third tier money that people like to put in. People like to put in the apples and the oranges and compare it to just the apples. ACC network is producing some revenue for those ACC schools. That's the one thing that's worked out. However, those ACC schools paid a premium to get that ACC network created and built by ESPN. What did they have to do to get that ACC network built? They had to extend that grant of rights from 2027 all the way to 2036. And boy, they would not do that again. They would not do that again. Mid-Florida Academy, yes, ACC network is not bad, but the price that they had to pay to get it built, holy smokes. Holy smokes. Son of Sarek, let's be honest. Washington and Oregon don't care if the Pac fails. They'll end up in the Big 10. Four Corners care just a little. They have a spot in the Big 12. Hard to get a buy-in when 6 schools want to buy out. Again, if you're new to the channel, smash that like button. We're going to be doing live. We're going to be covering this story. We got so many other stories to cover. We're going to be getting into spring football here real soon. We're going to be doing watch parties of spring football games. Live watch parties. Is that crazy? Does that sound crazy to you? Well, if you're crazy about college football, subscribe to our channel, smash that like button, share the video with your family and friends. Mike K, I'm glad you came into the chat, because this comment, just decide the new playoff rules for 26. It will decide the fate of a lot of schools. It will. It's going to decide the future of college football, but the battles are just starting to be waged when it comes to 2026. It's going to be the story. And a lot of people aren't talking about it. A lot of people aren't talking about it. This YouTube channel, this college football peek around the corner, we've been talking about it. We're going to continue to talk about it over and over and over again. There's going to be little stories popping up. Little stories. The positioning, the elbowing. At every university, every conference is trying to better themselves to make sure they're at the table for the great gold rush of 2026. Okay, I think we're going to close it up. We were on the air for 2 hours and 11 minutes. I want to thank you all for joining us here at Peek Around the Corner. It's been a wild night, a great night in the chat, great phone calls. We went over the John Casano article. We went over the Dennis Dodd article a little bit. We went through that, in our episode earlier today, at episode 154. If you've missed it, go to our episodes. We do a deep dive in Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports. Panic time in the Pac-12. I say yes. Now it's time to panic. Maybe not for the next couple weeks, but for the next 5 years. I really do think this is a very difficult time for the Pac-12, even though they have a tight relationship with each other. Great universities, the engine of the economy, the national economy, and especially out west. But those universities, some of those universities do not want their athletic department to be buried. They do not want to happen. And only a couple of them have a real choice to make right now. Oregon, Washington, time to flex your muscles. So join us. Subscribe to the channel. You'll get notified. We could be popping up 2 hours from now. Tomorrow night, tomorrow afternoon. We go where the story is. So subscribe. Hit the like button. Sorry, we're going to have to close the phone calls. We're closing the show. Until next time, from all of us at Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please, please, you all take care of each other. Thank you so very much.